Hello guys, we are here with a brief explanation of done editorials. We will explain the difficult words, discourse markers, punctuation marks and idioms. Our first editorial is about South Asia peace. The peace process in South Asia moves in fits and starts. This is an idiom which means anything that works on and off, anything that functions irregularly. Followed by a colon. Colon will explain the meaning of previous sentence. Things look up one moment only to come crashing down the very next. The last few years have been particularly tense, with the situation along the line of control volatile, while the two states came to the brink of another war in 2019 after India's Balakot misadventure. However, is a discourse marker. Of late, it seems that efforts are underway to cool temperature and restart the dialogue process, apparently through the back channel. The first sign of this thaw came last month. Thaw means defrost becoming soft when the respective DGMOs established contact and announced resumption of ceasefire along the LOC's line of control. Further signs that something is afoot, something is coming, came on Wednesday when Prime Minister Imran Khan, speaking at the Islamabad Security Dialogue, said that India should make the first move to normalize ties, while adding that Kashmir was the lone irritant standing in the way of better Pakistan-India relations. On Thursday, the army chief made similar comments at the same forum, saying that it was time to bury past and move forward, while again highlighting the need to resolve the Kashmir imbroglio. Imbroglio means problem, complexity or complication. The Prime Minister has point because after LOC ceasefire, India, being the bigger regional power, should initiate the dialogue process. Earlier on, a discourse marker, always followed by a comma, Mr. Khan has also said that if India takes one step towards peace, Pakistan will take two. The fact is that in the current atmosphere, the resumption of dialogue process itself will be major achievement. A state of perpetual conflict suits no one, particularly the millions of poor in South Asia, while better relations can pave the way for socio-economic uplift for all. As the Chief of Army Staff noted at the Islamabad Forum, South Asia is amongst the least integrated regions of world and defense spending comes at the expense of human development. However, a positive as the signal appears, it would be a premature to celebrate talks about talk. It is in between, this sentence is in between the double commas, and double commas never break the flow of a sentence. This is also a kind of punctuation marks like double dashes. Both countries have been at similar juncture before, where negotiations had reached an advanced stage and peace seemed imminent. Imminent means about to happen. However, the process was derailed and soon it was back to square one. Such mistakes have to be avoided this time around. The interlocutors on both sides need to tread carefully without raising expectations. Interlocutors means a person who takes part in a dialogue or conversation, and tread means to walk, step or stride or pace or go slowly. The progress achieved in earlier discussion should be built on, and so-called soft areas, people-to-people contact circuit, can be a starting point to reach the tougher issues on the agenda, such as Kashmir militancy, etc. For starters, again a discourse marker followed by a comma, hawks on both sides must be sidelined so a conducive atmosphere is created for a dialogue, as there will always be a noisy lobbies for war in both countries. Conducive mean helpful, making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. Consequences for peace needs to be strengthened so that the complicated issues poisoning ties since independence are resolved, and South Asia can move forward on the journey of human development and economic progress. Next editorial is about rift in PDM. So we all know that the PDM rift is going on. Resigning from the assemblies was a nuclear option in which the PPP always had the most to lose among its allies in Pakistan democratic movement. After all, discourse marker, it alone of the component parties has a stake in the current setup, including the Sindh government. Now the push has come to shove. The PPP's reluctance to take this step has become crystal clear. Shove means push someone or something roughly. The alliance on Tuesday announced the postponement of its March 26 anti-government long march owing to differences over submitting the resignations. Certainly, again, a discourse marker that will enhance the articulation style of your essay. The rift in the alliance does not make for good optics. And government ministers are having a field day proclaiming the demise of PDM once again. Their glee means happiness, joy, pleasure, however, may be premature. Alliances like PDM, composed of parties with interest broadly falling along the same arc but varying in their particulars, often suffer some discord along the way. Nor are such divergent political unions uncommon in this country. Even the anti-PPP Pakistan National Alliance, also known as PNA, aside from several right-wing parties, also included the Progressive National Democratic Party. When cracks appear, strategies must be revised to keep an alliance intact. The PMLN, fighting with its back against the wall under the PTI government, seems to be caught between two extremes and will be the most demoralized by the latest development. On the one hand is Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who for change has nothing to lose in the current setup and has perhaps unwisely linked the resignations to the long march in an attempt to pressurize the other component parties. On the other hand is Asif Ali Zardari. Regardless of what he may have led the alliance parties to believe, the shrewd politician will only do what serves him or his party interest. Shrewd politicians means a politician that is intelligent, clever or alert. Indeed, it is a discourse marker. It is worth asking whether a go-slow in the PDM campaign promises some advantage to the PPP. In the Senate election earlier this month, Yusuf Raza Gilani won the coveted Islamabad seat. Coveted means most desired. A victory ascribed by the PDM to the establishment's neutrality. However, the elections to the top Senate office has thrown a wrench in the PDM's complacency. Wrench means a sudden violent twist or pull, and complacency means self-satisfaction, self-approval, self-appraisal. The PPP leadership may be thinking, who knows which way the wind will be blowing even if early elections are held. Moreover, while the opposition alliance is well within its rights to call for early elections, to do so halfway through the PTI's tenure can be considered unreasonable, even a non-starter, given the poll rigging allegations are a par for the course in the country. Compounding the challenge, the establishment for its own reason is evidently still backing the same horse. Without its supports, effecting a change in the political setup is extremely unlikely. While the PDM may want to reflect on whether it created unrealistic expectations among the public regarding its capacity to bring down the government, the PTI for now has reasons to celebrate. Quad meeting. Next editorial is about Quad meeting. At the height of Cold War, a web of competing ideological alliances crisscrossing the globe was the order of day, with states allied either with the Western or Eastern blocs or maintaining tenuous neutrality. Tenuous means very weak or slight. With the end of bipolarity, the usefulness of these alliances appeared to wane. Wane means to diminish, to disappear or decrease. However, it seems that the US-China rivalry is helping form new blocs aligned with either the sole superpower or rising China that Washington sees as a challenger. The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue or Quad, bringing together the US, Australia, Japan and India, certainly seems to be aimed at containing the growth of China and countering the People's Republic in its own backyard. The leaders of 4 states recently held a virtual summit, the first since the Joe Biden took office, to discuss the China challenge. Joe Biden is the President of America, and this sentence is in between the double dashes which will break the flow of sentence. So if you want to read this sentence, you will read like this. The leaders of 4 states recently held a virtual summit to discuss the China challenge. Expectedly, a discourse marker, Beijing has not been taken kindly to the Quad discussions, issuing a hard-hitting statement in response. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has said the attempts to hem Beijing in will not succeed. Hem means to edge or borderline the China, and that the states should shake off their Cold War mentality and ideological prejudice. Prejudice means biasness. The US sees China as a serious economic rival as well as threat to its global interests, thereby explaining the formation of such blocs. However, it is difficult to see how much formations can contribute to global security. What is more, such security and ideological alliance force non-aligned states to choose sides on the global geopolitical chessboard. For example, American officials have subtly and not so subtly criticized CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Pakistan landmark venture with China. Venture means journey and subtly means in a manner that is so delicate or precise as to be difficult to analyze or describe. And bulwark means a defensive wall. Moreover, American support to India as a bulwark, as a defensive wall against China has also upset the balance of power in South Asia, with New Delhi, capital of India, harboring superpower illusions. Harboring means concealing, hiding, shielding or protecting superpower illusions. Instead of forming competing blocks with the military dimensions, a much better option would be to integrate regional economies and promote trade and people-to-people exchanges. As for those states that want to form geopolitical blocks, they should not force sovereign nations to tie their lines on face isolation for not bending to dictate. Dictate means an order or decree imposed by someone in power without popular consent. Our next editorial is about LSM growth. What is LSM? LSM is the large-scale manufacturing industry posted a robust growth of 7.85% during the first 7 months, July to Jan of financial year, signaling the revival of economy's activities after the protracted gloom of harsh IMF-mandated stabilization policies and later by COVID-19 shutdown. Even though expansion in LSM output remains narrowly based on its, and it is not unexpected given the low base effect, many are projecting GDP, gross domestic product, will record higher growth than the targeted 2% this year compared to the 0.4% contraction the previous year. This is so in spite of new data from the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics showing slightly slower LSM growth in January compared to the 2 previous months. The rebound in large-scale industry, which represents almost 80% of country's total manufacturing and accounts for 10.7% of the economy, after a contraction of over 10.5% last fiscal year, is a hopeful sign. It not only signifies a substantial uptick means increase in the domestic consumption of cement and other building materials, but also an increase in textile and clothing exports, leading many to invest billions in new projects as well as in the expansion and upgradation of existing ones. Nonetheless, the upturn remains fragile. Fragile means weak. Some likely adjustments such as increased energy prices and withdrawal of certain tax exemptions for corporations for the revival of suspended IMF program could not slow down LSM recovery and diversification of business. The lower interest rates and cheaper long-term financing for investments are key factors driving LSM expansion. Any change in the dovish monetary policy once the IMF program is again operational could also trigger a negative impact on industrial recovery. Dovish means favoring diplomacy. While industrial output has expanded, generating economic optimism, the agriculture sectors remain a weak link in the economic chain, with the food imports rising by 50.3% to $5.3 billion year on year in the first 8 months of fiscal year to Feb. The widening trade deficit may bring the balance of payments position under pressure. Additional burden on the external sector is coming from the cotton and yarn imports to meet the local textile demands in the wake of failed crop this year. The share of food items like wheat, sugar, edibles, spices, tea, pulses. We have already said that double dashes will break the flow of sentence, so we will read the sentence like the share of food items in the import bills has reached 15.8% this year compared to 11.3% last year. Economic revival requires the government to also focus on investment in agriculture to improve output. The poor performance of the farm sector could cancel out the gains of manufacturing sectors. So our next editorial is about 5 lakh doses of vaccine. With the third wave of coronavirus pandemic tearing across the country, the arrival of another 5 lakh doses of Sinopharm vaccine from China is a welcome news. Like the first batch, this one too is gift from China government. On the top of that, the first consignment of privately imported Russian Sputnik V reached Karachi on Wednesday, although it will be a few weeks before the batches are dispatched to government-approved inoculation centers. Another Chinese vaccine, the one-shot CanSino, is expected by the end of month. So you can see there are 3 types of vaccines now provided in Pakistan. That is Sinopharm vaccine, Russian Sputnik vaccine, and CanSino vaccine. So we are still behind the world in AstraZeneca, Moderna, and Pfizer vaccine. It is essential that Pakistan purchase sufficient doses to inoculate enough of its population so that the herd immunity can be achieved. Given that the vaccine campaign got off to somewhat lethargic start, lethargic means slow or sluggish start, with even many health professionals who were eligible in the first phase reluctant to receive their jabs. Jabs mean vaccine shots. The government needs to put up efforts into getting public buy-in. According to government data, in the first 2 weeks, only 32,582 frontline healthcare workers out of 78,000 in the Sindh got their first Sinopharm shot, with other provinces doing even worse. Until a few days ago, only 2,40,000 out of an estimated 8 million Pakistanis over 65 years of age had registered themselves for vaccination, that worked out to 3% of those eligible. Vaccine aversion, mainly arising from misinformation and mistrust to official data, is very real problem in this country, although one might have hoped that the healthy community had more confidence in scientifically proven procedure. With inoculation centers largely carrying out their tasks smoothly and more first-hand accounts available about the vaccine causing few to no side effects, the pace may pick up. Nevertheless, is a discourse marker. This is an area that the authorities should look to pay more attention to. On a related note, the government has made a sound decision in revising its earlier intention to not place a price cap on privately imported vaccine. That would likely have put the jab out of reach of all but the most well-heeled Pakistanis. Coal miners' death. The death of over a dozen coal miners in Balochistan in 2 accidents in the past few days alone underscores the perennially dangerous conditions under which the coal is extracted in this country. Archaic mining methods mean old or antiquated mining methods, ignorance or willful neglect of safety precautions, and the state's apathy. State's apathy means state's lack of interest, enthusiasm and concern have made coal miners across Pakistan venues where deadly accidents are simply waiting to happen. At least 13 coal miners were killed when a ferocious fire erupted after a trapped methane gas exploded inside mine in Harnai districts and Marwar area of Balochistan Bolan districts. Ferocious means very deadly, fierce, savage or wild. Erupted means to break out. In 2020, 72 deadly accidents in different coal mines across Balochistan claimed the lives of over 100 colliers. The dangerous working condition and excruciatingly slow and difficult process of granting compensation to victim families. So what means excruciatingly means to an intensely painful degree. Compensation to the victim families had come under discussion in Senate in 2019. Now the sentence in between the double dashes is who do not have the resources or time to pursue mine owners and government officials. The Upper House Standing Committee on Petroleum lamented means expressed passionate grief the hazardous working conditions of colliers, and yet nothing substantial emerged from the debate. It is an open secret that a large part of the mining industry operates unofficially and the colliers work on daily wages. At the same time, the provincial mines and the mineral department remain critically underfunded as safety inspectors lack even the basic equipment required to do their job. Though the Mines Act that was passed in 1923 gives vast powers to mines inspectors to ensure compliance with safety standards, judging by the frequency of deadly incidents, it appears that are either neglectful or incapable of performing their duties. In 2019, the provincial government in KP passed the KP Mines Safety Inspection and Regulation Act that bars anyone under 18 or over 60 to become a coal miner, but it is not clear how the law which was set up in the step in the right direction is being enforced and whether miners and workers in the informal sector are now being duly registered. Unfortunately, is a discourse marker followed by a comma. The state of coal miners and lack of protection for the colliers who risk death and disease as they work long hours undergrounded are reflection of generally lax attitude of the government towards people. Lax attitude means not tight or firm attitude. Dash, especially when it comes to the poorest and the most vulnerable segment. So Dash is now explaining the previous sentence. It is about the time the authorities took stock of situation and put an end to the cycle of death by strictly ensuring that international safety standards are met and errant miners owners be punished. Errant means misbehaving, guilty, culpable. Thank you so much. This was all about editorials of 18 and 19th mark. You don't forget to subscribe our channel to get the daily updates. Thank you so much.